One day, Mrs. Davis accidentally spilled water in the living room. Gladys slapped her in front of Jude. "This is my house," she yelled. Jude was furious but too ashamed to speak. His mother left the next day, crying. "Let me take you back to how it all started." Jude was a well-known man in the small town of Ikorodu. At 33, he had built a life many envied. Though his tailoring shop was small, it was thriving, thanks to his hard work and determination. But the true pride of Jude's life was Doris. She had been his girlfriend for 5 years, and together, they dreamed of building a happy future. Doris was a kind and humble woman. She had stood by Jude when he had nothing, lending him money from her little savings to buy his first sewing machine. The people of Ikorodu often whispered about their love story, calling it a perfect example of true love. But what the town did not know was that Jude's life was about to change forever. One Sunday morning, Jude's friend, Williams, invited him to attend a new church led by a popular pastor, Pastor Dugood. "Jude, people say this pastor has the spirit of prophecy. He can see the future and give you directions for your life," Williams said excitedly. Jude, though skeptical, agreed to go. During the service, Pastor Dugood's loud and commanding voice filled the small church. People clapped and shouted, "Amen," as the pastor spoke of blessings, breakthroughs, and deliverance. Towards the end of the service, Pastor Dugood pointed at Jude. "Young man, stand up," he called. Jude hesitated but rose to his feet. The congregation fell silent. "You are destined for greatness," the pastor began. "But there is one condition. If you marry a woman who is not a virgin, your destiny will be destroyed. Poverty will follow you like a shadow." Jude froze. His heart raced as the pastor continued, "I see a woman in your life now. She is not your wife. If you marry her, you will suffer all your life." Jude's mind was in turmoil. The pastor's words kept ringing in his ears. Could this be true? Was his future at risk? For days, Jude avoided Doris. He found it hard to look her in the eyes. Every time he thought of their plans to get married, Pastor Dugood's warning echoed in his mind. When Williams introduced him to Gladys, a beautiful young girl from the neighboring town, Jude became even more confused. Gladys was quiet and reserved, and word spread quickly that she was a virgin. Pastor Dugood encouraged Jude to pursue her. "She is the one God has chosen for you," the pastor declared. Doris noticed the change in Jude. One evening, she confronted him. "Jude, you've been distant. What's wrong?" she asked gently. Jude looked away, unable to face her. "Doris, I can't marry you," he finally said. It's not God's will." Doris was stunned. "Not God's will? After 5 years, you're telling me this? What happened to our dreams?" Jude didn't explain. He simply walked away, leaving Doris heartbroken. Within months, Jude and Gladys got married in a grand ceremony. The church was packed, and everyone praised Jude for his wise choice. "You're blessed, Jude," Pastor Dugood told him during the wedding. "Your future is now secure." But the blessings Jude hoped for never came. At first, everything seemed fine. Gladys appeared to be the perfect wife, soft-spoken and respectful. But it wasn't long before her true nature emerged. One day, Jude's mother, Mrs. Davis, came to stay with them. Gladys was unhappy about this but pretended to be polite. However, when Mrs. Davis accidentally spilled some water in the kitchen, Gladys exploded. "Must you behave like an old town woman?" she shouted. Jude tried to calm her down, but Gladys was relentless. "Your mother is in my house now. She should behave like a guest." The next week, things got worse. Mrs. Davis fell ill, and instead of helping, Gladys complained. "I didn't sign up to be a nurse," she said. One afternoon, in a fit of anger, Gladys slapped Mrs. Davis. The elderly woman left the house the next day, vowing never to return. Jude's troubles at home began to affect his work. He started making mistakes, missing deadlines, and losing clients. His once thriving business began to crumble. One day, his boss at the new tailoring company he had joined called him into the office. "Jude, what's happening to you? You used to be one of our best workers," his boss said. But Jude had no answer. His mind was constantly troubled by the chaos in his home. 3 months later, Jude lost his job. When he told Gladys, she laughed. "So now you're jobless? What kind of man are you?" she sneered. Jude couldn't believe her reaction. He felt trapped and hopeless. Every night, Jude lay awake, thinking of Doris. He remembered her kindness, how she stood by him when he had nothing. "I was a fool," he whispered to himself. Gladys's behavior only got worse. She spent money recklessly, refused to cook, and demanded expensive gifts even when Jude had no income. After 2 years of misery, Jude couldn't take it anymore. He filed for a divorce, despite knowing it would cost him dearly. During the court proceedings, Gladys demanded half of his property. The judge ruled in her favor. Jude lost his house, his savings, and much of what he had worked for. But for the first time in years, Jude felt free. The day the divorce was finalized, he took a deep breath and smiled. Jude returned to Ikorodu, broken but determined to rebuild his life. The towns whispered about his fall from grace, but he ignored them. His first task was to find Doris. When he finally saw her, she was running a successful fabric business. She looked happier than ever. Jude knelt before her. "Doris, I am sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me." Doris looked at him for a long moment. "Jude, I forgave you a long time ago. But I've moved on. I have no space for you in my life anymore." Though her words stung, Jude understood. He had hurt her deeply, and she had every right to move on. Jude's story became a cautionary tale in Ikorodu. People spoke of how he lost everything because he followed a false pastor and abandoned true love. Jude spent the next few years rebuilding his life, humbled but wiser. He often told young men in the town, "Don't let greed or fear cloud your judgment. And never leave someone who truly loves you for someone you barely know." Though Jude never fully recovered from his mistakes, he found peace in accepting his past and learning from it. Thank you for watching till the end. Please hit the subscribe button, like and share this video. Feel free to go through my channel for more exciting stories.